Hello, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. My name is Heather Richer. I'm the president here of Astro, president of the board. And this month, Astro is, our topic of the month is revenue management and pricing. So for September, we ran our power course on how to price. And we're so fortunate today to bring together these revenue management and pricing experts, Neal and Anurag, to do a little Q&A. So we have a deck we're gonna go through. We're gonna ask them some questions, and then please feel free to ask questions in the Ask a Question section or chat. Good morning. Yeah, please chime in with chat. We can see the chat, so talk to us there, ask a question. We're also planning to do a poll, so keep your eyes peeled for that as we go through the hour. And with that, I will let Neal and Anurag introduce themselves. Go ahead, Neal.
All right, thank you, Heather. Thanks for having us. It's great to be here today, and thanks, Astro. So my name's Neal Cyr. I am the co-founder and CEO of Quibble. We do pricing and revenue management for the short-term rental space. We do consultancy, and we have our own algorithms that build the prices. So very happy to be here, and hope to have a great conversation.
Cool.
Go ahead, Anurag.
Thanks, Heather, for inviting me to this one. Hi, everyone. This is Anurag Verma. I'm one of the co-founders at PriceLabs. We have been doing pricing and revenue management for the short-term and vacation rental industry for about 5 to 6 years now. Have learned a lot from the industry on how things work. It's very unique in so many different ways. We all get into this from some other industry, but it ends up teaching us a bunch of things, and happy to share whatever we have learned so far.
That's a really great point, and that revenue management is a more advanced discipline kind of in some other segments of hospitality, and both of you have some airline experience, which is really interesting, and it's cool to see how you've applied it to this space. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your backgrounds, but you both have pretty strong revenue management backgrounds too.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of it will keep coming up as we answer questions and contrast on how things differ, right? So we don't have to start off there. Yeah.
And I love, Anurag, how you always have the product placement of the T-shirt.
Yeah, I need a branded shirt.
I know. I
used to wear these.
I need to get a mug at some point. Yeah, something.
I used to wear these to all conferences, and now all I can do is wear the shirt. So
online. Hey, there we go. This is what we've got. But yeah, no, thanks everyone for coming together for this. We want it to be interactive, so please chat, ask questions, and I'm going to share my screen and we will get rolling. Okay, we're going to talk concepts, technology, and best practices. So this is a really broad 101. We're going to walk through a couple different areas. You met Anurag and Neal. So part one is the basics of pricing. In our course, we talk about, we define it, right? What is revenue management? It's the practice of optimizing price and sales volume. Taking a revenue management mindset in short-term rental, we think in terms of what is understanding your overall market, and then we know that it matters what sub-market your home or homes are in, neighborhood, what type of unit do you have? Do you have kind of a brand to your unit? And we put that term in quotes because we know there's, economy and there's luxury, and where you fall in that does show up, right, with your images and your descriptions, even though you may not have an actual brand that is like well known. It does still come to life. Then obviously, what are your amenities and features? How are you merchandising your images, your descriptions, and then review scores, right? So kind of all of these things, when you think about optimizing price and sales volume, you want to think about these when you put yourself in your revenue management seat or your revenue management hat on. From there, you do need to have levers to determine, to actually put a strategy in place, right? So where do those levers come to life? Do they come to life in a revenue management system or on a channel? But ultimately, you want to identify that you have seasonality, at the very basic level, you have a high rate and high season and a low rate and low season. You have different day of week patterns, different booking windows. Do some people book last minute because you're in a drive-in market, or is it more of a 90-day plus booking window? Booking windows may vary based on, is it a 2-night stay or a 3-week stay? Then obviously holidays and events could be even those more extreme high demand or low demand impact periods. And then obviously, who are you competing with, right? So understanding, are you the only home like yours in the market? Or when people are shopping, are they comparing you to, another 10 homes or another 200 homes? What is that dynamic of your competition? So that's just a really high level view. And so what we wanted to just ask the two of you, Anurag and Neal, what do you see as the biggest challenge for homeowners who are trying to determine what price they should charge? So yeah, feel free, whoever wants to go first. Just want to keep, talk about this.
All right. I'll take the first swing. From our experience working with homeowners and a lot of property managers is data. And it's not only having the data, which there are data providers, it's understanding that data to make a useful decision. So there's a lot of metrics, and you said we come from an airline background, which is littered with metrics and acronyms. Is understanding those and letting them guide you as to where your price should move to. So it's kind of getting that data and understanding it, and maybe the first price you set, sometimes our experience is it tends to be a little high because the homeowner might find, or the property manager might find, a property that's similar enough, but it's at the high end, and trying to say, let's steer that price better as a data process. Yeah, that's kind of, I think, where we start the pricing and where you kind of hit the first speed bump.
Yeah, that's a really great point. How do you even get access to the data, even if you know what to do with it?
Yeah, and the other way around as well. Even if you have the data, like, what do you do with it? And there needs to be this constant feedback loop in some ways. Like, you set a price, for example, right, for any night, and then you start getting bookings, and maybe you start getting a lot of bookings. How do you know that this is a lot of bookings and I should raise the price versus this is not a lot of bookings and I should try to lower my price, for example? It's somewhat easier when you're getting a lot of bookings, you get fully booked up, and you know that you should raise your prices very far out. But there the challenge is, if you have one home, which a lot of homeowners doing short-term rentals have one or two or a few homes, right? Once a night is sold, it's sold. Unlike airlines or hotels where it's a little more forgiving, you sell a few early homes for a big event and you know that, hey, something is up, I should bump up the rates for the rest of them. Here, like, once it's sold, it's sold. Unless people cancel and stuff like that, right? But from that perspective, like, that's one of the things we've really learned. Like, if you have one home or two homes, like, a lot of times the factors you mentioned, Heather, like seasonality or events and holidays, you don't get to see it in your own data because you only have one home in some ways, right? Whereas if you're a large property manager with 50 properties, you would see those trends show up in your portfolio of when it's getting fully booked, when it's not, and things like that. So yeah, just having that access to data, and then also being savvy about taking the feedback from, like, how quickly you're getting booked or how you're not getting booked, and doing something about it. Those are the two, like, sort of things that a lot of people tend to do themselves and excel at it. Some people don't do but want to do. There's a wide spectrum of homeowners who are trying their best. Yeah.
We do have a question here on the side. I'm going to go ahead and make the poll visible. It is just, what do the folks on the line see? What is your biggest challenge when pricing your rental? So I'll go ahead and make that visible. You should see that poll so folks can take a look at that. I'll also go ahead and ask this question here. What recommendations do you have for polices to gather accurate data? We can go into that a little bit. If I'm trying to get more data, where should I go?
Got it.
Like a external vendor, like Key Data or something like this.
Yeah, I guess too, you could say, well, are there, if I just have my home on Airbnb, or I just have my home on VRBO, can I use data? And we had that a little later too, as to, is that useful? Maybe is that a place to get data? What are your thoughts on that?
I can, yeah. So there are a few things you can do. The easiest, most intuitive thing that you can do is just go on Airbnb and go on Verbo and search updates, right? Like Airbnb, especially if you do a search as a guest, you can put in dates, you can put in number of guests, and then there is a filter for price. And if you click on it, they give you a nice histogram of what's the distribution of prices for these dates in the area that you've selected, which is data, which is helpful to know. Don't necessarily look at the prices they show on their page, on their first page, especially because those might be prices that are on the lower end because they want the guests to book those low prices. But look at the distribution, because it goes down all the way till if they have 20 pages of properties, it will show an aggregate of all 20 pages to say, hey, for example, for New Year's, which is in high demand, this is what people are priced at right now. So that's a data point, right? So there are some data points that are very easy to get that way. There are two problems with getting those from the OTA, like doing a search. One is you get sort of one, it's very time consuming, right? You have to go do search for every single period of time. And then the second problem that comes up is you can get only certain types of data, and that's where the data providers come in. So there is key data, which does source data, which is essentially looks at different property managers and their own preservation data and aggregates. Then there is AirDNA, there is transparent. Every pricing provider has some data that they provide. So we have our market dashboards. Other pricing providers also provide their market dashboards, where they tend to do a little bit more, where they not just look at the current pricing, but also on occupancy, but they also see how it has evolved over time to be able to say, hey, for Christmas and New Year's, how have people been booking so far? What length of stays are booking and things like that. So there are plenty of places depending on how advanced or how deep you want to get into it.
I love that point. We'll keep talking about that. Can you get a sense of what length of stay demand is, and really understand where you may be cutting off demand if you have a 5-night minimum, but 80% of people are, looking for 3-night stays. that type of data is really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to part 2 here. The second section is technology, obviously near and dear to both of your hearts. So if an owner is, moving along fine, they've had their home for several years and have been, self-managing it, and they're looking at this wondering, well, do I need a system? Should I get a system? I've been manually updating my rates and seem to be doing fine. So in our course, we talked about 4 kind of buckets of reasons, of things to think about. So on the left, we talk about the revenue management systems and the algorithm-driven, pricing that is, real-time updates, processing enormous amounts of data to help you understand what you need to price. On the right, we have that market intelligence, which is what you just talked about, right? The what's happening in the market, additional scrape data or real data coming out of property management systems. So let's start on the left. This first one, system level of control. So this goes back to that idea of, well, if you're selecting a system, do you have all the levers that you need to configure what you believe is right for your home? So if well, I never want to have a rate below $100, that's my floor rate, then obviously that would be a rule you would want to be able to apply. So to questions about what are your thoughts on what configuration you would need out of your system. A second one would be the seasonal occupancy. So this we talked about with if you have really low demand and really high demand, or your home really isn't even available, like the roads are closed in the winter, so you shut down your home, but your really busy season is summer, do you need a system if that's the type of home you have? The third discussion point was the diverse supply and fast changing demand. So this is one where it's more difficult to keep up manually. If there are 100 homes last month and 200 homes this month, and you see demand changing a lot, or you're running in your market 70% plus occupancy all the time, then the ability, for the next 365 days, maybe to identify where you can increase $20 or $50 starts to get really tough. But there's so much changing quickly that there could be opportunity to do that. And then the fourth one being, obviously, if you have more than one home, that manual work starts to become like a 2x, especially if the other home is completely different in a different market. So then on the right, we have, why would you want to have even this additional data, getting access to data like having a subscription to Key Data or Transparent or AirDNA? And where would a deeper understanding of the market help you? Where would understanding supply changes help you, or is it important for you to know? So that's just laying out. And again, we go deeper on this in the class, but want to get the two of you, your thoughts on this. Before we do that, I did want to show this diagram. So when people think about the left here, a revenue management system, which is really what you two help provide, Quibble and PriceLabs, that it can, and I don't know, maybe you can speak to this. I don't know exactly how your systems work, but in some cases, if I'm an owner and I don't actually have a system that provides distribution for me, I just maybe have my home on Vrbo, Airbnb, and Booking.com. I've linked my calendars through just the manual linking process so that my availability is linked. So but I don't have any additional technology. Can I work with a revenue management system, a pricing system that will deliver those prices directly to all the channels? The other option is having that tech stack where the rate system sends it into this property management system that then does other things for me. Maybe that provides up my own booking engine for me. Maybe I am consolidating my guest response with this platform. So there's some options there. So I'll just ask these two questions and then have you both speak on kind of that whole view of the world. What do you see as the difference between pricing tool and market intelligence data solution? We talked about that a little bit. Do I need both? And then what can I use? Maybe could I use Airbnb or VRBO? So Anurag, if it's all right, I'll ask you to go first on this one.
Sounds good. So I guess there is the biggest difference between pricing tools and market intelligence tools is the pricing tools also they'll also look at the market data, but they also update the rates for you in some ways. That's the primary purpose, and that doesn't mean that to your question or to your point about control, like that doesn't mean that any of these pricing tools are going to take over and do things you don't want them to do. You can still specify a lot of sort of variables to say, don't go below this price, don't go above this price, don't do this, don't do that. Like you can even there are plenty of things which pricing systems, pretty much any pricing system can't do perfectly, which you know because you're in the area. For example, like a lot of pricing systems depend on forward-looking signals of what kind of things are happening in the market to figure out when a big event is happening, right? A lot of times you know about a big event even before there are any signals in the market. Maybe a new big event just got announced that had never happened. Nobody has started booking for this. Nobody has raised prices for it yet. How does a pricing system get to know about it? It will learn about it over time. But you as a human being who read the news knows about it right now. So sometimes you can just go ahead and override these pricing systems to say, hey, the system doesn't know it yet. It will eventually, but I know something is happening. I want to set up the prices here. And that's sort of the exception case, right? But for most nights, there are certain things that that the system knows and the system is allowed to do, which help improve revenue by doing those constantly every night. So for example, one of the things that we have seen just helps in short-term rentals, especially where there is generally an oversupply in most markets, is as the date gets closer, unlike airlines where the prices go up, in short-term rentals the prices go down. And the primary reason is like the difference in sort of the booking behavior and the demand and the supply in airlines, which is very consolidated, versus in short-term rentals, where it's nobody owns the 10 remaining homes. All of them are owned by 10 different people, and they all want that last two bookings to come to them. They don't care about like how much those two homes make in total, because they're not their homes. They care about how much their home makes, even if it is slightly lesser, right? And of course, there is a boundary that you're willing to go to, below which it doesn't make sense for you to rent at all, and things like that. But yeah, those are the kind of things where the system will automatically do things for you, sometimes based on rules that you set, sometimes based on the data that it sees, that just help instead of doing everything manually, which might take your time every day and diligence every day in some ways.
That's a really good point about the idea that, oh, it's last minute, and this, if there's a need, the thought is, oh, do I need to discount because now I'm last minute? And a race to the bottom is never good. But also the understanding of, well, is there last minute demand? And we talked about in the class a little bit, right? Like the booking curve of maybe you're getting your longer length of stays 30, 60 days out, but you still have demand maybe that comes in 7 days for 2-night stays. And that if there's so much demand and your system is helping you understand there is limited supply left available, there should be no need to discount. And I've used this term in talking to other owners, like the nail biter situation, like, oh, it's 5 days away, I still haven't sold. But if you actually hold on, in some cases, right, if you understand that booking curve, I don't know if you see that, or just that it's hard, right? It's like your personal, income. So
yeah, and this is where it becomes very tough to, if you only have one home, to sort of experiment, right? Because it's it's hard to experiment where like your income is sort of on the line, your entire income is on the line in some ways. But again, like there will be some nights that go unbooked, and that's okay, as long as in the aggregate there are enough nights that are booked at a reasonable rate that you're making good money in some ways. I don't know if that helps clarify things or further confuse.
No, I think it's just the idea that if you did understand the data, you would take the approach of, well, I'm not really taking that high of a risk, right? Though it might feel like this is selling last minute, if you really understand the data that there's truly that much demand, go ahead, Neal.
No, you're exactly right. And it is kind of trying to display to someone what's as you said, you have 5 days left to take a booking, and this is oh geez, what happens if this goes empty? But then if you maybe could show someone, well, 80% of your bookings come within 5 days for Saturday, the weekend, then they might ease up, or they might relax and say, okay, that's a data point that helped me just think through, okay, I don't want to go empty, but a lot of the times I take these bookings last minute, and how big of a discount do I need to take? How sharp should that curve down for my price go? And as Anurag said, the airlines do this different. So this is very counterintuitive to me to see price start dipping as you get closer to that point. So yeah, it is. Hopefully, what we can do is help. Ease the nerves. And maybe they're right. Maybe it is. You have 10% chance of taking a booking here in that last 5-day window. So do what you can to get the booking, but that's not always the case.
And go ahead.
Sorry. No, the other thing that pricing systems do that Heather, you touched upon very briefly, is in a lot of places, 60 days out or 6 months out, you get these long bookings, which are like bread and butter for a lot of people. Like everybody prefers longer bookings, or at least like not 2-night bookings, right? But then there are plenty of markets where close in, especially last minute, a big chunk of demand is those weekend bookings or 2-night bookings, or sometimes single night bookings. And you can decide if you want to take single nights or 2 nights or not. But a lot of things that the pricing systems also do is do things like automatically reduce your minimum stay as your date approaches closer, or fill up gaps in your calendar automatically. So if you get 2 bookings that are 5-night long, and then there is a 3-night gap in between, and your minimum stay is still 5 nights, you're going to go unbooked. Whereas most systems will automatically update that and say, hey, gap cannot be filled. If you're okay with us filling this gap with 3-night minimum, we'll do it, and things like that. Which generally, like, some of this automation can seem scary, but ends up like there are plenty of rules that you can set around it to say, okay, this is what I want the system to do.
That's a really great point. We had some owner dialogue about that orphan or gap night, or nights that you just shared. You have a 5-night minimum, but now you have 3 nights in between 2 stays. And when it's 1 night, how people think about that and the risk of like, oh, is that going to be a last minute party being booked, or who is this guest? And that's what's been interesting to talk to people about testing too. We had one homeowner who was hesitant, but then found that the guest was someone who was just driving through, and they needed just 1 night because they're just passing through,
Right.
So it wasn't a bad guest or whatever.
Some of our users in cities especially tend to do 1-night minimums during the week and 2 nights over the weekend. 2 nights over the weekend to avoid parties, and 1 night over the week because there is business travel. Not right now, but there used to be business travel that sometimes comes for just 1 night, has their meeting and goes back, right? So it really helps also to understand who your guests are, and see what will fit them better.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Understanding your guest segmentation.
Yeah.
All right. I'll keep moving on. The technology is a big one. I mean, how do you have the tools in your toolbox to actually make changes, set rules? But to inform all of those things you want to do, we've talked about what are the elements of your unit, of the market, that give you pricing power. So we've broken it down into 6 buckets. And again, would love to hear your thoughts. Are we missing something here? Do you agree with these? Again, using the term brand loyalty or book direct, the idea that someone who stays in your home loved it so much, they know they want to come back. Are you giving them the opportunity and helping them be able to come back without having to go shopping for your house again, 6 months from now? And obviously, the more loyalty you have or more connection you have that people are excited to stay with you, the more you can charge them. The second bucket is obviously high demand periods. That's an easy one, where demand is outpacing supply. You can increase your rates. Images that sell. So we've seen this too in talking to, owners that are looking to get up and running, but not wanting to make some initial investments, maybe in like professional photography. But, I know there's data on this in the hotel world. It'd be cool if in our space we eventually have data too that shows, when this home, you should be able to charge $500 a night, but because the images are not professional enough, the consumer doesn't see the value. Another pricing power in the 4th bucket here, hotel quality touch points, which ultimately can lead to the good reviews. But the idea that this is kind of exceeding the expectation or meeting the expectation, and now more than ever too, with the consumer trend of guests who've never stayed in short-term rentals before coming over from, staying in hotels, there's this, what is the expectation of the guest? Then changing supply, obviously, if you think, well, I charge, $500 every Christmas. Well, if this Christmas, this New Year's, there is 100 more homes on the market like yours, can you really still charge that amount? How much does supply change your ability to price? And then the merchandising part, which goes beyond just the images, but also one thing I'm excited to watch and learn more about is the promotional. Lowering price alone is never a form of promotion, but are there ways you can get slashed through? We know that Airbnb does a little, and VRBOs seems to be taking what Expedia has done for years and applying it a little bit more into the short-term rental space. So curious if you would agree, on the 6, and then talking about how important do you think it is to understand these supply changes? Because that can be a tough one. Like we talked about, tough to see that data potentially. And then, what other factors influence pricing power? So Neal, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, so all those things, I think when we're talking about pricing and revenue management, you think this is kind of a section of your decision making, but all of those things play into the value of the property. So like, the images, if you don't have, images, even if we price everything exactly right and it displays exactly the value of that property, if someone doesn't see it or no one's giving reviews, even though it's priced properly, like our best pricing doesn't help you that much. So it is kind of, you need the full, the full listing to be working properly. In regard to the supply, it's hugely important. If you think of yourself, competing against one other unit in a town, you have a lot of control over what the price can be, because after the other guy books, then it's kind of, you can set, you have a lot of freedom or what it is. But if you're up against, say 100 units, that's going to dramatically affect your price, as you said. But I guess you also have to consider what is the supply that you care about. And when you benchmark yourself, is it, just against other units? And as you kind of said in the beginning, the mindset of pricing and revenue management, it is a process, but it's also, finding who the competitors are and being willing to be flexible on how you kind of set these prices. So, if you are in Houston, is the whole Houston market your competitor, or are you in, uptown Houston, where, you've refined that to a sub-market where you could even get it even closer? So supply matters, and how you define the supplier, your competitor, is hugely important. And, being willing to, go through the process of, you might start with high level pricing that is Houston, and then you might get, refine your pricing that goes down to uptown. And you might even say, okay, I actually want to look at only 10 units in my block. So even refining supply that exists, because it is flexible. So I think, and I think the way you set this out and the way I think about revenue management is kind of, it's not a one thing that we do. It is a process that we're kind of trying to constantly work through. And then there's all these pieces, that we want to continue to update. And supply is one of them. And we want to just keep, and to the point about systems can try and help you track supply.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to make your life easier for yourself is possible.
Yeah. With inventory that can come in and out so quickly.
Yes.
To know really how many units you're competing with. Yeah, Anurag, what would you like to add on this one?
Not much, other than I guess that was a good answer. The two things I would say, the things you mentioned there on the previous one previous slide were a lot about generating or increasing the demand that your property sees. So improving pictures, reviews, and getting more direct bookings, getting a brand out, so that you don't just get the demand that comes through Verbo or Airbnb, but you're already filling up your calendar with bookings that no other homeowner is even seeing, because you're the only one that made this impression on this guest, right? And you got them to book directly with you. So that all of that increases your demand, and then you essentially look at that increased demand and say, hey, that now I have a little more pricing power in my market. I can raise my prices in some ways, right? So revenue management in some ways, or pricing, comes sort of almost second. Like, you first have to figure out how to generate demand. Like, if you can put up a listing on Airbnb and don't put any pictures on it and price it at $20, and not many will book, because you might be priced really low, but you're not going to generate demand there. So the first part is generating good demand, and then comes the sort of pricing to it in some ways, right? But on that front, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I also realized we forgot to answer the question about channel managers and property management systems on how to distribute prices and things like that, right? I almost have my take on that has been that like using a system, if you are listed on more than one OTA or if you have a direct booking website, the first step should not be to get a pricing system. It should be to get a channel manager or a property management system. They do a lot more than keeping your prices and mainstays in sync. I mean, there's a lot of value in having a lot of your messaging semi-automated, if not fully automated, having your updates being made from one single point, you not having to log into multiple systems all the time to answer an email and things like that. Like there's plenty of things. And then it also makes your job, regardless of whether you want to do it manually by looking at market data or whether you want it to do using a system, it makes the job of managing prices and minimum stays and things like that a lot easier. You're only updating one single system, and that does the job of updating everything else.
Yeah, that's a really great point. It's a good little tease. We have our next power course moving into October on October 14th is building the tech toolbox and diving more into what you said, right? Like, what are the tech solutions that will help create efficiencies for you and your entire marketing and operations needs? So yeah, it's a really good point. I did want to go back a little bit to the pricing power. Some other conversations we've had in the community are around what can I do with kind of that hotel touch point, but the idea that what can I do to improve my property and add value to it? You know, renovation, obviously, right? Like updating a kitchen or bathrooms clearly are, you know, enhancing your product. But we've talked about things like adding a basketball hoop, or do I put a hot tub in? Or another one that's interesting is not really an attribute, but pet friendly. You know, there's some good conversations around that. And personally, I don't really know like the best place to get that kind of data. And, you know, it's out there, you know, and some of it is driven by on Airbnb or VRBO or booking.com. How can the consumer filter, right? Today, can the consumer even filter for a basketball hoop, but they can filter for hot tub or pool? Yeah. What are your thoughts on this kind of attribute pricing or like an amenity feature offers?
Neal, I've been speaking a lot. Do you want to go first?
Well, I wish I had a better answer. I don't know a whole lot about the attribute side.
I think it's new to kind of talk about, right? Yeah. Like you have to get to that data somehow.
I can try to take a stab. It is important if it is searchable on Airbnb, like if it's or Verbo, if it is an attribute that's sort of tagged as an attribute, only then can somebody even search for it, right? Also, that the most important point here is if you have that attribute, do go and tag your property as having that attribute, because that's just free. Free search. You show up on search for free because of those things, right? But the way we try to sort of quantify some of this, and it's not an easy thing to do, is, and this is actually available in our market dashboards, is you can look at what percentage of properties have a certain attributes and what percentage of recent bookings happened on properties with those attributes. So, for example, if you look at an area and you see that, hey, there is an attribute here that's fairly common, like 20% of the properties have a hot tub. And then in the last 30 days, say we find that 30% of the bookings have come on properties that have hot tubs. That gap, 20% versus 30%, it doesn't tell you exactly how much more hot tubs are worth, but it does tell you that, hey, like there is benefit to having a hot tub. So like if you are thinking about it, it might be some worthy investment in some ways, right?
Well, and if someone is, sorry, just adding to that, right? Like it's now you have access to that demand, because if there is a consumer saying, I don't want a home, period, that does not have a hot tub, it must have a hot tub. Now you have access to additional demand too, right? Like,
yeah.
Sorry.
the listing itself, when your last question there is what other factors influence your pricing power? If you think of the listing kind of just as a unit separate from everything else, there is some power inside that by it having, as Anurag was saying, they might be listed higher, be it based on price or based on, how frequently it books or something. So these other things that, drive bookings or drive it to happen kind of are attached to your listing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I've had people talk about, how they even add in their description, certain things, right? Maybe it's triggered as an amenity, but make sure you're adding it again. Like people are reading these descriptions.
Yeah, like even having a picture of all the cleaning supplies you use these days is, I mean, I don't know if it works or not, but I've seen it discussed enough in forums and boards and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, consumer trust, right? And
Yeah.
that gives your, maybe pricing power, but definitely impacts your ability to convert, right? If you're down to between your home and one other home, what are those things that would push someone over the line to convert with yours? And cleaning, that's a really good point.
And every conversion you make gives you pricing power. That's more demand to you.
Yeah, good point. This is a good one. I feel like we could have a separate Q&A webinar on just this, and I think it's exciting to see where the industry will go here. This was talked about in that data and revenue management conference a little bit, that Booking.com is rolling out this star categorization for properties. And my understanding is, and this is from Ian Auckland at Booking.com, that it's an algorithm that's trying to score properties in a more market specific way. And the example he used was air conditioning in a unit gives you pricing power in Miami, Florida, but air conditioning in a unit doesn't necessarily give you pricing power in Northern Europe. So thinking about those things too and understanding your market.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, to that point, it doesn't matter what amenities you have. What matters is what do your potential guests think about the amenities you have. It's like more of a perception thing. Like same with pictures, same with reviews. Like you could have the best property and not so good pictures, like Neil said, and
right.
The perception of the property goes down, and that's what matters, not how the actual property is.
Yeah, that price value. Okay, so this last section, we're doing okay on time, is testing strategies. And this one is that revenue management is an art and science, I think, convergence, because, we've just listed a few things here, right? Like how do different cancel policies impact your conversion, but also impact maybe, your ability to have to recover lost revenue if you do have cancellations. Close to arrival. Length of stay restrictions. We had a good conversation already about this. Your 5-night minimum when you have a 3-night gap period or orphan days is a problem. Booking window or demand curve, high demand dates and shoulder nights, and then promotions, which is that merchandising. And so how do you test all of this? How do you know what's right for your property or properties?
Yeah, it's a good question, because you have to, as Anurag said, you have one unit and it's book or not book. It's pretty binary. So your testing phase can be scary. You can try and aggregate some data from the industry, but really, if you want to know if a cancellation policy is right or not, you're right. You have to take your own data and be willing to do some testing. I think what we've seen, like with length of stay and cancellation policies recently with like COVID, the more flexible you are. So if you open these up, people appreciate that, because the fluidity and flexibility thing with demand right now. But to get real data, which is your own data telling you if increasing price or increasing length of stay is good or bad, you have to be willing to experiment. And some of this you can do in a lower risk type of scenario, where, as we're talking about the booking curve or the demand curve, like you can try and have higher prices further from the time that the the booking occurs. If you want to try and see, your higher value booking come far from departure anyways. But a true test to know if that demand will materialize at a high price, you might have to really let it run up. And this is, as we said, a process. And you have to put your revenue management mindset in the terms of, as long as you're always learning and moving towards better, is you're doing revenue management in the sense of if your cancellation policy that you change doesn't work, you have to accept that you paid a little bit to learn that, and you've learned it, and you can, continue.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think Neil gave a really good example of when you can experiment up. Like, for example, in your high season or really big nights, you can sort of try increasing the price or increasing the minimum stay at least far out and see if somebody takes it, right? And if it doesn't and you start becoming uncomfortable, then lower it slowly. When it is about experimenting down, you can try doing it in low season or where the risk is a little less. So if your low season books at 50% on average, and you want to see if lowering my minimum stay from 4 nights to 2 nights, for example, will do anything for me. Do it for a couple of months and see if that 50% changes to 70%, for example. I'm just making this up. I'm not saying this will happen. So if it moves from 50 to 70% without changing the price, just by moving the minimum stay, in that case, what you have added is 40% more revenue, because from 50% you went to 70% at the same price. You have also added a lot more work for you, because now you're getting shorter stays. So then at least you have some data point to say, like, how much more work was it to get that more revenue, right? And because it's low season, you can sort of, you're doing it at a lower risk to your overall yearly income, because high season is disproportionately present in there. So try it for some segment of that low season when you're experimenting down. When you're experimenting up, try to do it in high season and see what happens there.
That's a really good point. In the class, we talk about RevPAR, revenue per available rental, and that's a top line, right? Like you just said, you've just sold those 3 nights in between, or you're now taking 2 night stays, but your costs have gone up, right? Because now you have more housekeeping need. So also layering on your top line revenue with your profitability, right? That view of the world, right? To understand what is the cost to operate with these different strategies in place.
Hopefully the housekeeping need, there are other costs that go with shorter stays of wear and tear and things like that. But the housekeeping itself, hopefully there is a cleaning fee that's very representative of the actual cleaning costs. So having shorter stays there should not add to your, it shouldn't take away from your revenue there, as in from your profits there at least, right? Your cleaning costs should be added on top of the 90 rates in some ways, so that regardless of what length of stay you take, you get that money, and the cleaning fees are on the top.
I guess your time, right, to coordinate that, it's maybe extra.
Right. Yeah.
Effort,
your
but
effort and time is a bit more. Yeah.
That's where your point about having technology to help with the operation also would empower you to take maybe more dynamic approach to revenue management, because now some things about your operation are easier too. So, yeah. I think that was our last section. So I'll just say a few things here, and then we'll flip over to see if there's other questions from the audience, and to use our last kind of 10 minutes here. But we do have some great content on the blog available to everyone. So to dive deeper on this topic. We also, to cap off our topic of the month, we actually have one more expert Q&A we're excited about that is this Thursday. So what we're going to do in this one is go even deeper on system advantages. And we touched on that as one section here, but we're going to spend more time really diving into that on Thursday. We have Beyond Pricing and Perfect Price lined up for that. So we're excited to keep this conversation rolling. And then, of course, if you want to take the course, and all of our 1-week power courses are free to members, And just to even check it out and engage in the kind of after hours conversation and have access to experts like Anurag and Neal, join the community, take advantage of that 14-day free trial. So our goal is education, and we're going to keep talking to experts like these guys and continue to bring more educational opportunity. But with that, let me come back here. And oh, wow, great. Tons of stuff in the chat here. So we have a question from Karen. How often should pricing be updated? I have to do it manually on a couple of my sites. Do you guys want to take that one?
Yeah, I would think of this as, if you think of all the attributes that matter that could affect your price. We talked about supply. You could talk about, demand events and all these things, just the marketplace. Anytime one of those changes, it will probably affect the value of your property in terms of there is a price change. So it's not like it happens, every 30 minutes or every 2 days. In the sense that anytime the market changes, you want your price to capture that change. So it's not like a hard and fast rule. I think generally you want to evaluate these things as frequently as possible, because you want to give the system a chance, or the person or whatever, to find that variation and react to it. So there isn't like every 5 minutes, every 1 week. If you're doing this yourself, I mean, I think PriceLabs would do it every night, right?
We would do it every night, yeah.
So as a starting point, a person can't reasonably do that, or
for the next 365 days,
yes.
too. So it's about, that isn't even not humanly possible, right?
Once you get 2 or 3 properties, it's crazy.
You could, I mean, if you're doing it manually, one thing you could try doing is try to look at it at least once a week. I mean, this is most people who use us. I mean, when we talk to them about, okay, why did you decide to start using? They say, hey, I was doing it once a week. What you could do when doing it once a week, for example, is try to find out what kind of things really change materially, like drastically in a week, right? So more than, say, if you're in a city market, like more than 60 days out, there are fewer bookings in most city markets, other than when there is a big event or a holiday. So when you're doing that weekly review, look out for the big events and holidays far out, and then focus more on the next few weeks when the bookings really start picking up in cities, right? So you don't have to necessarily, if you're doing it manually, you don't have to update every single night in the next 365 nights. You can focus on the big nights far out, and then for the next few weeks, then do it. Like it's not impossible. You can still do it. Like, yeah.
I love the system guy just said it's okay. You can still do it manually.
I mean, people should do what they're comfortable with, right? So I'm telling people what the best thing to do, in my opinion, is if you're doing it.
No, totally. It's so true. And that's why I like to talk about how busy is the market? How fast are these changes happening? And the example I always go to is like, the 90% year-round market. What's so crazy is in some of those markets, there can be a 10-minute, $10,000 mistake. I mean, that's at this high level, but if you're really at that kind of, all those changes you talked about, Neal, if those are really happening every day, and it's not even about where the events are, it's just about these markets are that busy. And now you had so much supply book over XYZ weekend that take this moment in the next 48 hours to raise your rate for that week, because you're going to get booked. Right? Like that. And if you miss that 48-hour window of a change, you've just left even thousands of dollars on the table potentially. Anyway, that's extreme, but that's when systems really, I think, also are necessary.
And again, I mean, Heather, you're going to point this out again, but just having a system doesn't mean that you stop looking. There is, I mean, airlines have had systems for 30, 40 something years. Hotels have had systems. They still have revenue managers for a reason, because there are things human beings know that no system can't. And I'll give you an example from I think this was last year. For the folks in Europe, this will resonate a lot more, but I think I can come up with a US example as well. the Champions League, the UEFA Champions League final was going to happen in Madrid, and the teams that play in it were getting decided the week before or 2 weeks before. And our customer in Madrid was monitoring who shows up, who's going to show up for the finals. And they said if the British team shows up, they are going to bump up the rates 3x. And if it's the Spanish team, which is local, then it's not going to be as much. Partly because if it's local, people don't need a place to stay. Like if the Madrid team comes into the game, nobody needs a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
But if the British team gets into the finals, then half the audience is going to be British, and they'll need a place to stay. So I can really charge up. So a system can't. I mean, at least right now, it's very hard for a system to know who's going to win that game, and depending on that, how's my demand going to be impacted, right?
You know, it's a good one. And if you're in a college town, you can look at the schedule. I mean, and obviously COVID is changing this, but it's, you know, as even limited occupancies are back, you can look at a schedule and go, which teams are more likely to travel, right?
Yeah.
And then same thing, right? Like you're the humanly know.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, I mean, the points of systems is not for you to like brush off your hands and give it away, but more to like, instead of spending 3 hours doing it, maybe look at it for 15 minutes and be done, kind of a thing. Yeah.
We did have a little more. I don't know if you see this chat, Anurag, but it was a few folks went back and forth on PriceLabs. It ended up looking like a good discussion between Randy and Neal about how you can see a recommendation but choose to implement it or not.
Right.
So I don't know if you want to comment on this, but Neal and it looks like Neal kind of confirmed how PriceLabs works.
Got it. Yeah, so I think what Neal is saying is true. So in any pricing system, and this is not just us, you get to see the recommendations, and there is a switch which you can choose to keep off. You can just see the recommendations and not do anything. You can see the recommendations, you can fine tune the recommendations. So like Neal said, you can set a minimum price. You can set a minimum price by season. So you can say in high season, I want the minimum price of 300, and in low season, 150, for example, right? And you can say, hey, there is this event far out, like a year from now, that the system hasn't picked up, but I know it's going to book up eventually. And I can want to set a minimum price of $500 for that thing. And you can do all of this and then say, okay, now I'm comfortable with this. I've set up my rules on how the prices should adjust. And I have, for the close-in events, prices are looking automatically fine and whatnot. And then you can say, okay, I'm okay with these getting updated into my properties now. So it's, in most systems, it's going to be like, you see the recommendations and then you say, hey, I don't want to use this, or I want to use this, or I want to fine tune these further and then use them. So, yeah.
Any thoughts on that kind of system? You know, you're smarter than the system, Neal. You know, the human.
No, I think Anurag's exactly right, where there is no system that exists. And we've both been in this space, or the three of us have been in this space for a while, that is so good that no one needs to babysit it or watch it at all. Like, that doesn't exist yet. Like, we all want to build it. You know, that's our dream here. Like, that's what we're working on, and all of us are working on. But no, if you're gonna do this, like it is, hopefully it saves you time, or if you want it, like Quibble will also do the revenue management for you if you want to outsource it. And you can do it, get started. And even with PriceLabs or us, you can start for free in the sense, there's trials that you can do. So people that aren't yet doing this, like, give it a try. Let one of us here help you get started. Because
that's a really good point. The ability to see the system work for you without having it actually impact is that people should know that's available to them. That's a really good point. They don't just means like, oh, I'm said yes, so this whole thing's going to blow up my whole rate strategy immediately, and that there's a way to take some baby steps.
Yeah. And just, exactly, take that one step, see if it works. We know it does, because over the long term, we've been doing this for a while, like airlines, hotels. Now it's and Anurag's been doing this for 5 years in short-term rentals. So it works, and we can prove it.
It's in the data.
Yeah. It's in the data. Give us a chance to prove it.
Just real quickly, I know we need to wrap. The results of our poll were really across the board. 40% of folks said that evaluating the market is the biggest challenge. 40% said manually keeping up with price changes is their biggest challenge. And then we did have 20% talk about trusting a system. So I think we did address kind of all of those things. But again, if you want to keep talking to us, jump in, join the community. We're going to keep these conversations going. So with that, I think we need to wrap. Any final words, Neal or Anurag? Did we cover it all? Okay. Yeah, thanks you guys. Really appreciate your time. And this will be recorded, so folks, it'll live on. So again, appreciate it, and have a good one. Catch you guys later. Okay. Bye.
Yes.